Hey, how are you today? This is Josh Patrick, and you're at Cracking the Cash Flow Code. And today, my guest is the one and only Mike Michalowicz. Mike is one of my favorite people in the whole world. And he appears when he does a new book on this podcast. And he has a new book. And by the way, I think is far and away his best book. It's called Fix This Next. We're doing something I've only done once before, which is we're going to be doing more than one episode at a time because there's so much stuff in this book. I'm going to spend the first podcast episode, we're going to talk about the book and the theory of the book. And then the second podcast episode, we are going to get into the specifics and the nitty gritty of the book and how you're going to use that to make your life better and make your business significantly better. So let's bring Mike on and we'll start the conversation. Hey, Mike, how are you today?
Good, Josh. How are you, my brother?
Good. Well, I forgot to tell everybody, by the way, that you're also the author of like 9,000 other books. Among them is Profit First, Clockwork, and The Pumpkin Plan. And you don't know this, but you have two of your books are on my 20 must-read books for private business owners.
Wow, thank you. I did not know that. You can see, though, I strategically market them at all times behind me. So.
Well, I think that's a good way to do that. In fact, we're going to help you with that right there.
Oh, wow. Look at you go.
So we'll leave that up for a while and we'll let people go to Amazon or wherever they buy books and buy a copy. By the way, I managed to get a pre-publication copy. I read the whole thing in like 2 days and actually took notes on it, which is really unusual for me to do with any book I read.
All right. I feel I'm in a special category with you.
Well, you know, you've been in a special category for years. In fact, you were the reason my first book came out. And now I'm working on a second book. So it's
remember the big anteater? It was a unique cover, which was super smart.
Yeah, that covers that's a different conversation, but the cover was totally by mistake. So anyway, let's get started on Fix This Next, which I think is really an interesting book. How did you come up with the concept and talk about the hierarchy needs, if you would, for a while?
Yeah, for sure. So the concept came unexpectedly, intentionally, but unexpectedly, if that makes sense. It takes me about 5 years, Josh, to write a book. It's a lot of research. It's testing out the hypothesis until I arrive at a thesis, and then testing it further, employing it internally. I own 3 businesses actively, and then writing it. So about 5 years ago, Fix This Next came out just last week. 5 years ago, I email my list of readers and say, what's the biggest challenge you're facing in this year? And I'm not the most technically savvy guy. I must have done like a triple click or something because 3 emails went out in the same day at different times. But what was interesting is in some cases, the same person answered that exact same question the same day with different answers. Like one guy's like, in the morning, he's like, the biggest challenge this year is sales. In the afternoon, it was hiring people. And by evening, it was setting a vision. And that's when it became clear to me that the biggest challenge entrepreneurs have is knowing what their biggest challenge is. That became the conception of this book.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I think it's a reality. I think most of us.
By the way, I would agree with that. That's been my experience also.
Yeah. And it's been my observation. That's the first time I had some empirical data to prove it out, just in the way people are responding. And I think most of us go into business with a big vision and big plan, but immediately get thrown into the fire, and it's all about firefighting for the rest of the business. It's constant survival. So what we're doing.
I just want to stop you right there for a second, because you just said something really important. Is that most business owners spend their entire life firefighting, being reactive and not proactive. Why do you think that's true?
I think I know exactly why it's true, and I'll show you. I can do a little demonstrative, even an illustration. Okay. To drive.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah, now we're going crazy. So this will require a piece of paper. I'll draw it here. You can follow along in your head. You don't need to draw it. But what you do is you draw a letter A in the center of a piece of paper and put a circle around it. And what that represents is where we are right now in this moment. You know, point A, as they call it. And that's the now. And then the second step is we draw as many arrows as we choose. We'll choose 3 in this case. 3 arrows away from A in any direction you choose. And what each arrow represents is a choice we have in the moment to escape the now, to get out of, now for many businesses is crisis or challenge, particularly in the environment right now with the economic shift. So to escape A, I can go in this direction or up or whatever. The final step is to draw the letter B in the bottom left corner of that piece of paper and put a circle around it. And what B represents is the actual vital need of your business, what action your business needs you to take to serve it, to grow it to your vision. But no one draws arrows towards B, or very few. And the reason is very obvious. We didn't know where B was in the first place. And that's the demonstrative of how businesses run. We know where we are now, and we know we need to get out of crisis. So we take actions to get us out of crisis. But what it does is it moves us to the next A, because we're just moving around in circles. And the next A is tomorrow's crisis. And we make a decision to escape it in any direction. We choose the new A. And many businesses start moving in a circle. It's this constant circular pattern because they don't know where B is. Now, sometimes, and this is actually the most dangerous thing, sometimes a business takes an action arbitrarily that's in the direction of B. They move towards B without even knowing it. And as I say, happenstance happens. So what happens is someone comes in, they're putting out fires all the time. One day, all of a sudden, the business starts clicking. They're like, oh my gosh, I got it figured out. We're crushing it. We've got it moving forward. This is the day I've been waiting for. And the next day they return to the business and the shitstorm returns because they didn't move toward B intentionally. They moved to B by chance, but they've ended up in a new A, still not knowing where B is. So it's just another crisis. And then they start going in this circle again. So the goal of the Fix This Next system is, how do we identify B? To your point, when we're talking off air, the theory of constraints. What's the big bottleneck or the big problem in your business that actually needs to be resolved? How do you identify it? What is it? And once you know what it is, then we can make decisions that are congruent with that and deliberately move our business forward and permanently move our business forward.
Something like this fits in really nicely with, Stephen Covey made this popular in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, but it's really called the Eisenhower Decision Matrix. I just learned that recently, which is, most business owners live their life on urgent and important, which means they're always being reactive.
Yeah.
The place where you want to be, which allows you to go to B, is you want to be important but not urgent. And it's, most owners never make it for more than like 5 minutes a day into the important but not urgent quadrant, which is really where you want to be, which speaks to, by the way, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more, is how to become operationally irrelevant in your business.
Oh, that's the main goal. Yeah.
You really did a great job with that, with your book, where you say, gee, I want you to take a 4-week vacation every year.
Yeah, that was Clockwork. And when I was writing Clockwork, what I've determined is that we humans, we need the most simple, impactful thing that gets us 80% of the way to the goal. And if we can get that done, we're on our way to the goal. And I found with all these things in regards to business efficiency and building systems, there's millions of things to do. It was too much overwhelm. So I kept boiling it down. And the last piece of sugar was that 4-week vacation. If an owner commits to removing themselves from the business for 4 weeks, the other stuff becomes mandatory. You have to figure out how you can leave for 4 weeks, and you must put that stuff in place. And it's not a perfect experience. You leave for 4 weeks, you come back, there's probably going to be problems. But now those problems that reveal themselves are the true priority problems that you need to address to become operationally irrelevant.
Well, actually, if you set your business up, the first time you go away, you're not going to go. I would never recommend going away for a month. I would start with 2 weeks.
Right. You build your way up for sure.
You build your way up. But what you're going to find is that when you get to a month and you build it up properly, you should be coming back to no problems, because you should have systematized your business to allow you to do that. And you talk about this so brilliantly in this book with your assistant. I'm trying to blank on her name right now, who you also sent off on. Off on a sabbatical.
Yeah, that was Kelsey. Yeah. I talk about
Kelsey.
her Fix This Next.
Kelsey. Yeah, you did.
Yeah, Kelsey, who's now president of. By the way, she became president of our company. So in Fix This Next, I talk about. So I'll actually show you the hierarchy of needs, because this is relevant.
Yeah, I want to get into that right now, actually.
Oh, perfect. So I got what you want. So there's 5 levels of needs I define in the business, and how this came about is I believe that the DNA or the makeup of all business at the essence is identical. In fact, all humanity is identical when you look at the essence of it. Now, if you look at 2 people, say you and I are standing next to each other, we're very easy to distinguish: height, skin color, accent, all those elements. But if you peel back the skin of humanity, we're basically identical. Like if I go to the hospital because I'm having cardiac arrest, the doctor doesn't say to me, "Hey, your heart, Mike, is yours in your foot." Like it's always in the same spot. So the biological makeup's identical. Well, in business, the biology of it is identical. The essence of how a pizza shop runs or a law firm, when you boil down to the essence of it, is the same. And it translates into this hierarchy of needs, which, by the way, is very similar to Maslow's hierarchy of needs with one great significant differentiator. Foundationally, every business needs sales. Sales is, it says it here in text, it says, is the creation of cash. It's the oxygen for business. If you have zero sales, you have zero source of revenue, you have no cash coming in, your business is suffocating. It's the oxygen for business. Once that is adequately satisfied, and that's the key variable, adequately satisfied, then we move on to profit. The profit is the stability of an organization. And I think it was Warren Buffett who said, when the tide goes out, you see who's swimming naked. When the recession goes out, you see what businesses aren't focused on profit. And that's why so many businesses right now are getting wiped out. But you have to, once you have some adequate sales, you need to get adequate profit. Once you have adequate profit, the next priority need is order. That's what we were talking about, clockworking in business or operational efficiency, where there's no dependency on the owner. Next level above that's called impact. Impact is the creation of transformation. This is where business owners are not in the business of transactions, but in the business of shifting people's lives permanently to a positive. And then the highest level is called legacy. That's creation of permanence. What's so fascinating about this level, as I was interviewing business owners, I found that these business owners realized they were never business owners. They've been business stewards, meaning that they realized they had a responsibility to bring an entity to life, but it's about the life of that company. It's less about their involvement in the business. It's about the entity living on into perpetuity.
I just want to interrupt you for a second, Mike, because I'm a great interrupter. And there's a couple of things which I think are really interesting in those top two levels. One is once you get to level 4, impact.
Yeah.
You really want to be thinking about, at least in my opinion, of looking at or going through the qualification process to be a benefit corporation. It's a really interesting, it's not a tax structure, it's a legal structure. And what a benefit corporation does is that means that you're a triple bottom line company, is that no longer is profit the only reason you exist. You also exist for people on the planet at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a really interesting form. If you're at that impact level, you really should at least go to B Labs, look at what they've got, and see if becoming a benefit corporation actually makes sense for you. So that's something which I highly, highly recommend to people. So I interrupted you. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, you said you're a famous interrupter. I'm a famous over talkerer, so that's totally appropriate. So what I wanted to share in the BHN is these work relationally, and you must always satisfy the foundation first. So this translates to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you're familiar with that, he said there was 5 levels of human needs. The base level, we have physiological needs. We need to breathe air, drink water. Above that, safety needs. Highest level, self-actualization. But anytime a base level need is not satisfied, it becomes the priority need. So if some guy like throws a plastic bag over my head and wraps duct tape around my neck, which you've been to New Jersey, it's like a 50-50 here. If that happens, I got to rip the bag off my face. And that becomes a priority, even though I may be living at a higher level at the moment. Well, in our business, we may be living right now at an impact or legacy level, but then things change in the business or the global economy in this case, and we revert back to needing to breathe oxygen or to bring stability, the equivalent of Maslow as shelter to our business. So always revert to the base and say, do we have adequate sales to support profit? Do we have adequate profit to support order? And you continue up the hierarchy that way. The other thing that's interesting is some people try to skip levels. They say, you know what, I'm going to try to change the world. I'm going to be so caring for my community. I'm going to be all about impact. And they ignore the foundational levels. Sadly, I see it happening right now in the market. In our own neighborhood with COVID virus, some businesses say, we're going to serve our community more than ever. We're going to care for the community. And they've stopped selling. They've started serving. And 2 of them have went out in business within 4 weeks because they exhausted any kind of runway they had for themselves. They tried to skip up to serving without without breathing air. And that's impossible. So what we have to do is always start at the base of the foundation of needs, the business hierarchy of needs, I should say, and then work our way up. And once that level is not satisfied, Focus the fix there. The last thing I want to share about this is all elements are happening in our business at all time. Just like right now, while we're talking, maybe in Maslow it's considered self-actualization or something like that, but we're both breathing. We're not thinking about it. It's an automatic process. So all these elements are automatically happening. We simply use this chart to determine where do we need to apply the next fix.
Yeah, the thing that I want to add a little bit to your profit level, because I think that especially in the day of the coronavirus, which is sort of my lead I've been talking about a lot recently, is that I've taken profit first. I said, okay, here are the 4 buckets of profit you need to fill. 1 was lifestyle. 2 is a fully funded growth program. 3 is a fully funded retirement program, which you're likely not doing right now. And 4, which is the really important piece, is a fully funded emergency fund that will have your business last for at least 6 months, but hopefully a year. And what I've been seeing in this process is, luckily, a bunch of my clients have actually taken that advice. They are now in the middle of the best buying spree they will ever see in their entire life.
Yeah.
Because those who didn't do it, which is most businesses, because you're right, most businesses are an A where they're going off in all sorts of different directions and not focusing on anything that will actually move them. They're not going to make it. They're not going to have enough cash to get through. And as we both know, cash is the fuel that runs a business.
Yeah, there's no question about it. And I agree. Like there's opportunities in this market for bold moves, which ironically are not bold at all. Like marketing into your competition now because the competition's weakened, and why not market into that? Or acquiring companies, and you can do owner financed asset acquisitions right now, which means you put nothing down and the person that you buy from actually pays or affords you the loan. So you just pay off of the revenue that you generate. So those opportunities exist. The danger of writing profit first is some people, my fear is being the I told you you shoulda, coulda type of thing. So,
right.
You should have taken profit first, but you didn't. Sorry, it's not the appropriate response. It would be nice if you did profit first, but the nice thing is even in a down economy, we can start putting the infrastructure in place to build profit and to build sales. And interestingly, and I've now studied every recession back to the Great Depression. It seems like there's a 5 to 10 year cycle of this. And consistently, the strongest companies come out of recessions. Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Apple, GE, all these companies, these mega companies were built during recessions. And what happens is right now there is a decreasing supply, right? Our competition's fading away. There's remaining demand, pent up demand, meaning it's not activated. Some demand is stopped, but it is waiting until they feel emboldened or empowered again and the economy serves them. They're going to buy. But as the supply deflates and the demand waits, there's going to be that moment where demand is reactivated. And now you are one of the few suppliers. It's a massive opportunity for you.
Yeah, this is probably, if you're able to take advantage of this, and that's a big if you're able to take advantage of this, we're probably in the best situation we're ever going to have. And the other thing around this is, and I've studied generations for years, generational theory. Strauss and Howe wrote a great book called Generations. And in there, they talk about the 80-year cycle event. We are in the middle of an 80-year cycle event. This is where major societal changes happen. So you have to be thinking about this event versus 2008 or 1999 or 1978, because it comes along every 4 generations. If you go back 80 years, it was World War II. You go back 80 years before that, it was the Civil War. If you go 80 years before that, it was the American Revolutionary War. And 80 years before that was the British Glorious Revolution.
So every instance is a war. Or you're going to have the COVID war? Is that what you're saying?
Well, it's not. I mean, it happens to be wars are there.
I know.
But if you really go back 80 years, the real society changing event wasn't the war. It was the Great Depression.
Yeah. Of the 1929, right?
Well, it was 1931, 32 is where the Great Depression really kicked in.
Yeah.
The market crash was in 29. And over the next 3 years, we had this ongoing dribbling down of the economy, which would come up and go down and come up and go down. in my opinion, we are likely in a societal change that happened as a result of the Great Depression that's going to happen because of the coronavirus.
Yeah, it's quite possible, and I can't prognosticate what's going to come our way. My guess is I looked at the influenza virus, right, and so you had the first surge, then it starts to wane, and then you had a second massive wave, and I think right now we're approaching that second massive wave as people go back out there, which means there'll be more shutdowns of businesses. There's also I call it the triple tax punches coming. And as I'm investigating small businesses, that's my sweet spot. I'm really concerned about this. July 15th to September 15th is going to be a treacherous period because tax payments have been deferred. So the April 15th tax payment in the US deferred till July 15th. The June 15th installment of the estimates, now July 15th. So 2 tax payments are going to be due July 15th. Now, July 15th of 2020 is going to be taxes for Q4 2019, when many businesses were booming. That's a big fat tax bill. Then you're going to have the Q1 tax bill due July 15th. So you're going to get double hit. And then 60 days later, you're going to have the September 15th installment due. This is the first time, I believe, in US history that 3 tax installments are due within 60 days. And my guess right now, and what I'm observing, is businesses are not prepared for that. They're spending that tax money to save the business. And when those taxes come, they're going to get walloped. So the
unfortunate thing is a lot of these businesses will go bankrupt. That debt is not discharged.
The tax debt is not discharged. Exactly. No, they're going to get slammed. And because I've been on an installment plan once before because of my inappropriate management of money 12 years ago, which woken me to the pain of this, is the tax does not go away. The government is harsh. It'll come after you with interest, but also penalties. It will keep on punching you in the face over and over until you're numb, and it'll keep punching you then. So it's going to be dangerous.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Hey, Mike, unfortunately for this first podcast episode, we're out of time.
All right, so then we got to get out of here.
Well, we're going to come back again. But before we get out of here, how do people find you? And you have a whole bunch of programs that you run. So can you take a minute and just give us a real quick overview of what you're running and how they can find them?
Sure. So you know what I'll do? I'll start off with a bold ask. So anyone that's watching live, or if you're watching recording, I invite you to get Fix This Next. I'm so happy, Josh, that you said it's my best book, because I feel this is the most important work of my life. This may be my pinnacle piece. It will serve you, and it's the most affordable, effective way it can serve people. If you're willing, get it on Amazon right now, because it is the most affordable and effective way it can serve you. And it also serves me. As multiple people buy on Amazon, this is my launch period right now. As multiple people buy on Amazon, it promotes the book to other entrepreneurs. So that would be of service to me. And if you do it, by the way, send me an email to Mike Michalowicz. You'll see the spelling when you get the book. Mike@MikeMichalowicz.com. Say Josh Rules in the subject line, so I know you bought the book, and I'd like to send you a gift. I have content that got edited out called the lost content. I'd like to send that to you as a gift. So email me at Mike@MikeMichalowicz.com. Tell me you bought the book, Josh Rules in the subject line, and I'll hook you up with that. That's probably the best step to take right now.
Okay, cool. And I have an offer for you also. Is that as a result of what's been going on right now, and actually I've been doing this for years, is that I want you to become financially free from your business. You become financially free from your business, you have all sorts of options, not only with your business, but your life and how you live. And you're likely going to have a lot more fun, love your business, and do this, but you have to become financially free from your business to do this. So I put together this program I call the Financial Freedom Project. And I've got an ebook I wrote about it. If you want to get it, it's really easy. You just go to our website, www.sustainablebusiness.co, that's .co, not .com, and /freedom, and you'll get a chance to get our free ebook. Hey, this is Josh Patrick. You're with Mike Michalowicz. You're at The Sustainable Business. Thanks a lot for stopping by. And that was great. So we are now going to go and we're going to do this again. Are we all ready?
Awesome. Are we re-live? Is it the continuance?
We are continuing live.
Awesome.
And we are going to go. I'm going to start recording for podcast episode number 2. So here we go. Hey, how are you today? This is Josh Patrick, and you're at Cracking the Cashflow Code. And my guest today is a repeat offender. His name is Mike Michalowicz. That's Michalowicz.
Nice.
Michalowicz. He has a website that has that name on it. I don't know why, but he does.
It's the worst name. I set up a new website, Mike Motorbike. That was my nickname in high school, and it rhymes, and people can remember it. So MikeMotorbike.com gets you the same thing.
So I guess we don't have to bring Mike on. He already jumped on. So here he is.
Yeah. You're making fun of my name, Josh. That's how I do it. I just insert myself. Like you said, you're an interrupter. I'm an over talker. So there we go.
Okay, so in the first session we talked about the basic of the pyramid and why we need to stop at the bottom and start at the bottom and go to the top.
Yeah.
Let's dig in a little bit on some of the levels and some of the things I've got questions on.
Sure.
So you have a core need for sales, and in there you say we have a linked personal objective. What is that?
Yeah, so I call it lifestyle congruence. Well, here's what's fascinating about sales. Many business owners, actually the majority of business owners that I investigated, set arbitrary sales goals. They start a business and they say, we need to hit $100,000 or $200,000, right? And then when they hit it, they're like, well, that didn't work. And then they say, well, maybe it's $1 million. And it's just arbitrary. Well, I realized the number one determining factor if the business is working or not is it supporting the lifestyle they desire? So we actually have to look at the lifestyle first. What is the foundational lifestyle requirements you have? Not the big dream picture. What's the foundational? And then we reverse calculate what sales at what profit percentage needs to be achieved to support that. That's why I call it lifestyle congruence. And when we did that, a lot of business owners realized that maybe sales didn't need to be nearly as big as I thought. Maybe they could have a smaller set of sales with better profit margins. And that number, the sales number, was no longer arbitrary. So that's what it is.
Yeah, the interesting thing, and that fits in really well. If we have a fair amount of service providers who listen to this podcast. And for you folks that just heard that, if you do what Mike just talked about and you go through the exercise properly, you're going to find out you need to double your prices.
Right. Yeah. Often, double your prices. It's usually a margin game. So the thing is, you don't have to double your sales. And I just want to differentiate that. It's unlikely that you need to sell twice as much. You need to sell what you're selling at twice the price point. Right. I worked with the manufacturer that made leather products, and we actually quadrupled the prices. They were so afraid that customers would buy less. They actually saw an uptick in purchase because people also translate price into quality. And so they saw better quality just by paying a higher price point.
Well, the other thing is, especially, and again, this is for people who trade dollars for
time,
hours, for time of some sort. And even if you're charging on a retainer fee, you're still doing that. Is that people in that world, and that's, believe it or not, the majority of the businesses in the country right now they think they have more time to sell than they do.
Oh, yeah.
And, I've gone through this exercise. I've done this for Michael Port's group, who you're very aware of. And we've gone through this exercise where I say, okay, how much do you need an hour? And people say $100 an hour. I say, okay, great. How many hours do you have a year to sell? And they say 2,000. I said, well, no, you don't. Because unless you're going to work for 4,000 hours a year, you don't have 2,000 hours to sell. You have about 800 hours to sell.
Yeah.
So you have to remember, what do you need on an hourly rate to get what's your efficiency or what's your utilization rate at 800 hours a year? How much do you need to sell or charge to make a living at that? And it's typically $250, $300 an hour if you think $100 is what you need to start on 2,000 hours.
Yeah, that's really simple. Yeah, that's a simple way of seeing it. That's exactly the case. But there's another experiment I run with people. This speaks more about the order level of the business hierarchy of needs. And I do these live events. I'll say, who would rather make $10 an hour versus $100 an hour? And every hand, except for a few, goes up when I say $100 an hour. And the $10 an hour people, I'm like, well, why wouldn't you want to make $100 an hour? So there's some people that they're trying to challenge the system or whatever, or they're just weird. Then I said, now we're in new parameters. Who would rather make $10 an hour in automatic, meaning every hour of the day, the money is handed to you, and $100 an hour is on your work time. Like you have to work to make that. Which would you prefer? And then it starts becoming a little bit 50-50. $10 an hour sitting on the beach sounds great, but it's only $10 an hour. $100 an hour is better, but I got to work for it. So it's a 50-50. Then the last variable I say is who would rather make $10 an hour, but there's no limited ceiling, that over time it could become 2 times $10 an hour. So 20 or 40 or 100 or 1,000 has no cap, but the $100 an hour can never be improved or increased. Who wants what? And then almost everyone says, I want $10 an hour. And that represents the 3 stages of a business. In the first stage, particularly in a service business, it's just the owner and they are working for that $100 an hour and they got to work their tail off. Then the second stage is they're in that consideration. Should I hire someone? But if I do, I'm only making $10 an hour. I'm going to take a hit on my income, but it's on automatic. And they often start waffling there and revert back to the first stage. But if we get past that consideration and achieve the realization that $10 an hour can be amplified, then our focus becomes on amplifying those $10 an hour. And that's the intention to Fix This Next, to start moving up this hierarchy, is to realize the value of having other people, other resources do the work, and you're choreographing the resources to get those outcomes that you want.
Yeah, and to do that, you have to become a delegating ninja.
Yes. But don't wear the costume. Don't wear a ninja costume. You look like a weirdo.
Well, I'm weird already, so.
Would you do that? Could you imagine you come in with your dojo one-toe shoe, you're kind of kicking around, you take this work, you take that work.
It'd be fun to do, but The truth is, the hardest skill, in my opinion, for a business owner to learn, and that's probably in level 3, believe it or not, because level 1 and 2, you really have a bunch of helpers. You haven't started delegating yet, but you get to level 3, you need to be delegating. Yep. And at level 3, when you're starting to delegate, it's not going to work. It's not going to work the first 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 times you try to delegate. You're either going to become a micromanager or you're going to be an abdicator. You go back and forth between the two as a rule.
Yeah.
When you finally learn it, which is lots of small experiments, then you can get into level 3 and finally move into level 4 or 5. But what I find is most businesses never make it to 4 or 5 because they're stuck at 3.
Well, yeah. I mean, the statistics support that, right? So the vast majority of businesses globally have 2 employees and the owner, so 3 people or less, right? The vast majority. I think it's like upwards of 90% of businesses have 3 people or less. And the reason is because the owner is controlling all the decisions, to your first point, micromanagement, or is abdicating and therefore there's no control. Just take care of that. And then it's unsatisfactory and they have to go back and redo the work.
You have to follow through. So here, Mike, just for fun, I'll tell you what the statistics are in the U.S. because I happen to know that. Is that there's 28 million businesses in the United States.
Yeah.
22 million have no employees.
Wow.
Only 6 million have any employees. 300,000 businesses do more than $5 million in sales, and 150,000 businesses do more than $10 million in sales. So it gets really small, really fast.
Yeah.
So the truth is, probably 50% of the businesses we have in the United States are stuck in level 1. They just aren't creating enough sales. Forget about profits.
I would say they're stuck between the level 1 and level 2. So level 1 sales, level 2 is profit. I agree, they're generating a lot of sales, but also they haven't considered the correlation between sales and profit. They don't know the margins and they don't value the margins, and they think that a lower price will sell better. And so they're stuck in those 2 levels. And so we have to evaluate both. What we do when we work on the BHN, the business hierarchy of needs, is we do ask ourselves, what kind of sales issues do we have? Is it lifestyle congruence? Is it prospect attraction? Was it conversion? We ask ourselves questions about that. And sometimes you find that you're actually doing a satisfactory level. Then we look at profit and it's a margin issue, or that we're accumulating debt to sell, which is the worst way to sell. So yeah, I agree. It can be sales. Sometimes it's in the profit level too for small business.
Yeah, well, it's always going to go back and forth.
Yeah.
So I want to take a look at problem prioritization. Talk a little bit about that.
What prioritization?
Problem prioritization.
Oh, yeah. So that, that plays out at all levels, but often at the order level. So in the business hierarchy of needs, the title of the book is Fix This Next. It's identify what your next big problem is, if you will, your vital need. But at the order level, there's what's called problem prioritization. And what this is, it goes back to our mutual hero now, Eli Goldratt, is the theory of constraints. Where is the biggest problem that, when resolved, will open the biggest pathway to improvement of our business? Most people, when they look at their business, they're looking at the apparent issues, the obvious things, the things immediately in front of them, because we can see them, we can therefore act upon them and see results because it's immediately in front of us. But we don't contemplate the big picture. So what we need to do is simply look at the empirical data. And we say, of all the issues that we're identifying throughout the organization, which one is causing the biggest slowdown in the overall performance? The analogy I use in the book, probably Eli Goldratt uses a very similar analogy, is a chain. If there's a chain between me and you, you're in Vermont, I'm in New Jersey, we're both pulling this chain as hard as possible. The chain will break, but it will always break at the same point. Even with that ridiculous distance, the weakest link is what breaks. Therefore, when most businesses are trying to fix and strengthen all the links, the chain will still break just as easily at the same spot until the weakest link is resolved. Therefore, to improve the strength of the entirety of the chain, it's not fixing all the links, it's identifying the weakest one, improving that, and then the next weakest link will reveal itself, and that one needs to be improved.
So after you read Profit First and you read Fix This Next, I want you to go out and get a copy of The Goal by Eli Goldratt and read that. And then I want you to get a copy of Scrum by Jeff Sutherland and read that, because you don't talk about Scrum in the book, Mike, but it's really the next thing. If you have projects, you're doing project work, like I'm building a house, or we use Scrum today to build software. You may have noticed that every once in a while, your stuff on Google Chrome doesn't work. You have to restart Chrome.
Right.
And the reason you have to do that is that Google just pushed out an update for Chrome. They never tell anybody to do it because they push out an update every 2 or 3 weeks. And they use a process called Scrum to do that. So if you're in what Goldratt stuff, the theory of constraints is really good for, is whack-a-mole. Here's an issue. I want to whack it and make it go away. It's the weakest thing in my company.
Yeah.
At the same time, I have processes, which is level 3. When I get to level 3, I'm in the process part of my world. And then I need to have a process improvement process. In other words, a project improvement process. And the theory of constraints can be used, but it's a little bit more efficient, in my opinion, to use Scrum for that. So it's like you're stacking stuff on top of this, and you have such a good base to build on that it's crazy for people not to use it. Because what happens is a lot of times, and this is something which I think is a problem I see over and over, is business owners go for the wrong tool. Because they're not trying to they're using the wrong tool to fix the right problem. Or they're using the right tool to fix the wrong problem, because they shouldn't be working on that problem in the first place. There are things that are more important where fix this first really makes sense. And now we're in the theory of constraints. So, so here we need to let's talk about minimize wasted effort, which is, I think, in my opinion, is a really big deal, because we all who own businesses chase our tails around way too much.
Yeah. So you're hounding in the order level, and at this minimize wasted effort is with every bottleneck, there then is an effort to resolve that bottleneck, and that needs to be considered too. So there's a cost associated with opening bottlenecks. So what are you going to gain, but what are you going to invest? It's just like anything else. Like if I'm going to tell you, hey, Josh, I'm going to give you $1,000. Now, if you give me some money, now you know the return you're going to make. But the question is, how much money do you get to give me? If you give me $10 and I'll give you $1,000, I think you'll do that all day long. If I say you got to give me $10,000, I'll give you $1,000. No way. So many business owners just look at the one relation, what they're going to gain, the bottleneck opening. They don't also look at the effort required to do the opening. That's the minimized wasted effort. Are we being as efficient as possible at opening bottlenecks and maintaining the progress or the work that we're doing?
Interesting. Very interesting. So what about role alignment?
Fascinating. So this is something we're experimenting. We did experiment with, and now we're in full throttle because this may become its own book. So the way these realizations come about is usually my own stupidity, right? So I send too many emails out. I'm like, oh my gosh, and something reveals itself. A few years ago, it came out of my office with the big number. We'll say it was $10 million. I knew we could achieve this. I gathered my employees. They all came around, had the music playing, got all set up. And I said, this is going to be our year. I know the number. Wait for it. It's $10 million. We're going to do it. And a hush came over the crowd, my employees. And I'm like, hold on. Why are we all cheering? This is a big deal. I'm pumped for this. We have to have a real shot at this if we just hustle. And there was one just single clap, just trying to supplant my enthusiasm. I then asked, what's going on? Kelsey, who's my most trusted confidant, is now president of our company. She came to me and said, Mike, if we achieve $10 million, you get the brand new car and the bigger house, but what do we get? And I was like, oh, that number, the number that is set for the business achievement is for the benefit of the shareholder, the person that owns the organization. In any corporation, even the large corporations, when they set the number, like this is what we're going to achieve, there's the few benefactors and the many supporters, but non-benefactors. I realized we need to do role alignment. Role alignment is two things. First of all, people are most satisfied doing work that satisfies them most, right? That's obvious. And sadly, we take people and we put them in roles where they shouldn't be working, and then we get frustrated that they're not performing well. So first of all, it's aligning people with where their natural talents are. Secondly, and I talk about this in what I call intention alignment, is what are people's individual intentions for themselves, and get very clear on it. Going into this COVID situation, because I asked actively now, we knew one of our team members here was looking to get a new house, and she was in the process of doing it. Another person wanted to learn Spanish. Like we look at what are you looking to achieve now, midterm and long-term in your lives. Then the job of the business owner, the leader of the business, is to organize the path of the business to satisfy or serve the individuals supporting the business to achieve their intentions, while additionally moving in the direction of the intention set by the owner or the leader of the business. It's intention alignment. And now Jenna and Amy and Jeremy and Liz, and so they are highly motivated to serve the company because it's serving their individual objectives. So that's this blend of role alignment. They're doing what they like to do, and they're seeing the outcome and benefits to them. Last thing is, the company's not buying a house for Jenna. It's simply helping Jenna make that dream a reality. We're reminding of her. We offer flexibility in her work schedule so she can look and shop for houses. We're asking her just how it's going on and reminding her that we can make this. She can make that dream a reality. That's how we're doing intention alignment matched up with their roles.
So you just brought to mind two of my favorite things in the world. One is how to compensate people correctly, and the other is how to use values in your business.
Oh, I thought you said the Grateful Dead, because I know that's one of your favorites too.
Well, that's a different thing.
Okay, a different favorite.
I did go out and buy monster speakers this year, so I have this wonderful concert experience in my house.
Good for you.
But the thing about what you just said is that if you don't have clear values that are articulated with clarifying statements around those values, people have no idea what they're joining.
Yeah,
they're just getting a job.
Sure.
But if you have those things, people can sign up for what you're about, and people who don't like it don't bother to sign up. They don't join your company.
Right.
The second thing is, and this comes to shared values and role alignment, is that when you compensate somebody, it's great. You come out with the sales goal is $10 million, and let's say that $10 million puts $3 million in your pocket. You need to be having a total profit sharing program within your company that's not just a retirement plan, but actually is cash bonuses people get based on the financial performance of your company. I mean, what I found when I did this in my food service company, I used to be called Mr. Bonus. I would have all these crazy bonus programs. And I finally said, the heck with all that. If we hit a hurdle rate, 15% of profits are shared among everybody. It could go up to 25 if we really hit it out of the ballpark. A couple of things happened is that I didn't have to police the poor performers anymore. The good performers in my company did it for me. Because they would go to those people and they would say, you're taking money in my pocket, so get it straight or get the heck out of here.
Yeah.
So it made life a lot easier. So, financial people don't work for finances, but they don't ignore it either.
Yeah, I 100% agree. We do a quarterly profit distribution here, and people are anticipating it. And they're a little keen to the numbers. So we report the numbers regularly every Wednesday. So actually this morning, as of this recording, we reported the numbers. And we had a quiet week, and people are like, oh, it means something more because it impacts you personally. But I agree, that's not the ultimate motivator, but it puts food on the table. And we want to know that we can put food on the table, and a little extra green, that doesn't hurt. They notice.
Well, when you combine a open book management system where you're sharing all your numbers,
Yeah.
and you have a profit sharing system which is open and transparent so people know how they earn what they earn. It's not pennies from heaven. And you have clearly articulated values with clarifying statements. You're hitting both sides of that equation.
Yeah, and there's nothing to hide then, right? That's
Right.
some of these businesses. It's funny. Like I worked with a guy a while back, and the business was doing pretty well, and he bought a brand new sports car,
Yep.
and I was going to work, and he never drove to work. I said, "Why aren't you driving to work?" He's like, "The way people would interpret it the wrong way," and I'm like, "You know what? You're probably right." And the reason he interpreted the wrong way is because he cloaked what the numbers were really like. So he now had to live this duplicitous life almost. It was bizarre.
Yeah, it makes life really, really difficult.
Yeah.
So we have time for one more little topic here. So let's talk about mission, motivation, and dream alignment.
Yeah. So, okay. So we talked about a dream alignment already, the intention alignment. There's a great book on this by a guy named Matthew Kelly called The Dream Manager. I had the opportunity to interview a company called Jancoa, which is a janitorial company, which was the inception for that book, Dream Manager. So definitely check that out. But it's that intention alignment that no one cares about the business nearly as much as they care about themselves. But when the business cares about their own intentions and dreams becoming a reality, they start to fall in love with the business. So that's it. What were the other ones? Management, what did you mention?
Is mission, motivation, and dream
Oh, mission
alignment.
motivation. Yeah. Well, you're already talking about it's the higher purpose. So at my own company, you can't see on the, well, maybe you can. I'll see if I can turn the thing right there. It says eradicate entrepreneurial poverty. That is
My favorite, by the way, that is my favorite mission statement of all times.
Oh, wow. That means
Um,
that means the world to me. So that is the mission, my personal mission, but it's because a business is an amplification of the owner. I said, this is our mission, is to eradicate entrepreneurial poverty. And I have a visceral reason behind that. When we bring people on, we don't say, what do you think about eradicate entrepreneurial poverty? We simply say, what's been your experience around entrepreneurship? Has anyone in your family done it? And whatever. And we want to hear the true raw stories of struggle and pain. And everyone that we meet with seems to have a story of an entrepreneurial journey that has gone awry. And when they viscerally connect with it, we say, you get it. You feel that pain, you're on board. But some people say, I don't know any entrepreneurs, or they say entrepreneurs are rich people. That's how you make tons of money. I'm like, okay, you won't get it. But there's people here, when we start every huddle, we have a daily huddle by saying, why are we here? We're here to eradicate entrepreneurial poverty. And we'll go to stories of how one family is living off of welfare because the entrepreneurial passion, the entrepreneurial spirit failed for that family. Another one, they started their own business and they came out just losing money. It was the worst experience financially for them. That has become codifies the group. And here's the sense. I used to say if you can get visceral. Now I almost say it's the word angry. Like when I see entrepreneurial poverty existing, it actually makes me angry. It gives me the energy to fight back. And that's what my colleagues, I want to see if they have that same fight in them. That becomes unstoppable. We have a tiny business. There's 12 of us here. We are outpacing, and mostly part-timers too. We're outpacing competition 3 or 4 times our size on revenue because of that visceral, angry requirement to resolve this. It's the ultimate drive factor.
That's cool. Hey, Mike, we are unfortunately out of time. And the first thing I want to say is go buy Mike's book, Fix This First. You can get it at all the places you buy books.
Fix This Next.
Fix This Next. Why do I do this? Well, I did this wrong twice now.
No, that's okay. I didn't want to say anything. I like your title better. Fix This First. The only thing is, if I put first, it would have an S down here, and X marks the spot so much better. So.
Yeah, so no. And I apologize. I get people's name wrong all the time too, so I'm sort of embarrassed by that.
Yeah, my name is Mike Smith, by the way, just so everyone knows.
Yeah, Fix This Next. So Mike, you didn't tell me last time around this, but tell me about some of your programs and where people can find them.
Sure. So we have an organization called Profit First Professionals. We've certified accountants and bookkeepers in Profit First. We have advisors. They're called Fix This Next advisors, people who diagnose businesses to identify exactly what they need to do next and then help outsource to the resources that can find that for you and solve that for you. Or sometimes they can solve it themselves. That's Fix This Next Advisors. And also the Pumpkin Plan, another one of my books, we have Pumpkin Plan Strategist. I guess the starting point, because we've been talking about Fix This Next, is go to fixthisnext.com. And I think there's something really cool there. We have a free evaluation. You can click on the free evaluation and evaluate your business through 25 questions. It takes 5 minutes or less, and it will pinpoint for you exactly the one thing you must work on. And if you need help with it, we'll get you a Fix This Next advisor.
Sounds great. And I also have an offer for you too, which is I've been working on this thing I call the Financial Freedom Project, which actually fits under my new passion I'm calling the 100-year business. And the 100-year business basically is, what would you be doing differently today if you knew your business was going to be here 100 years from now? And the truth is, this is becoming a big deal. And here's why it's a big deal. If you're 30 or 40 years old, you need to be thinking about living to 100 years old, because you're going to. And you're likely going to be healthy right up to you're 99. So you're not going to be retiring at 65 and having 35 years of retirement for two reasons. One, you'll be bored. And two, you're not going to be able to afford it. But you do want to become financially free from your business, which means you're going to be changing your relationship to your business. So I wrote this ebook, which kind of explains what the Financial Freedom Project is all about. It's easy to get. You just go to our website, www.sustainablebusiness.co. That's sustainablebusiness.co, not .com, /freedom, and you'll get a copy of the book. Hey, this is Josh Patrick. We're with Mike Michalowicz. You're at The Sustainable Business. Thanks a lot for stopping by. I hope to see you back here really soon.